Vladimir Putin has fully transitioned the Russian economy toward wartime production, betting his country's financial and manufacturing systems can outlast the West until Russia sees a military victory in Ukraine. This ambitious endeavor not only reflects on Putin's commitment to the Ukraine war, but also serves as means to solidify its position as a global military power. By increasing its military production capabilities, Russia aims to project power and influence on the world stage. Moscow has ramped up the production of some military hardware by more than tenfold to supply its army in Ukraine, significantly increasing the output of missiles, drones, combat vehicles, and artillery. The output for products such as computers, electronics, and optics, a category that includes parts for aircrafts and rocket engines, are also projected to grow by 34% compared to the previous year. In addition, the Russian state has responded to the inflated value of the ruble by raising pensions, salaries, and other benefits for people who are not well off. At the same time, household consumption, real estate, and business activity have fallen in Russia since the invasion of Ukraine began.
We are talking about economic warfare. Let's be clear. The Deputy Prime Minister said Russia uses its leverage like a weapon. We're having a discussion about how the West should use its leverage like a weapon. And essential goods and services, medicines and food, should they be exempt from sanction regimes? Now, the short term I think is clearer. The long-term consequences of where we're going are less clear. A lot of this is trade distorting. Are we actually talking, if we think about all of these measures and everything that's happening, about the end of global free trade in the way we've discussed over the past 30 years at Davos and elsewhere? These broad-based sanctions, when do they become boycotts? When do we elaborate these rules of the road that boards and companies can use to decide when there's a fact-based approach to withdrawing from the Russian market? Be really precise. State the objectives, whether you're a government or a business, as to why you're disengaging from the Russian market. Cite your rationale within international law, human rights, corruption. Be very clear about why you're doing it.
Rostec, which is sanctioned by the West, is run by Sergei Chemisov, a close Putin ally. It controls 800 Russian civilian and defense entities and is by far Russia's biggest arms producer. Rostec employs over 500,000 people. This state-owned corporation oversees the research and development of military technologies and owns several production facilities, which play an instrumental role in putting those technologies into operation on the battlefield. Rostec and its subsidiaries produce a dizzying array of military equipment, from helicopters and armored fighting vehicles to Kalashnikov rifles and night vision goggles. If the Russian military can use it, Rostec has had a hand in making it. Putin said last week the country will continue to increase its production of military equipment, not by some percent, but by several times, indicating the Russian president is settling in for a long war, which some warn will have dire future effects. The longer the war lasts, the more addicted the economy will become to military spending, raising the risk of stagnation or even outright crisis once the conflict is over. As the Kremlin continues pumping money into its fragile economy, Putin's grip on the financial levers of the country also serves to prevent civil unrest that could lead to his ouster. After the start of Russia's aggression against Ukraine, the arms expenditures and military budget of Russia skyrocketed and continue to grow for the foreseeable future. However, the military industry is under threat despite the additional massive financial inflow. Russia's military-industrial complex faces challenges stemming from its reliance on government funding and a fluctuating economy. Sanctions imposed by Western nations have also impacted Russia's access to global markets and technology. In response to sanctions, Russia has sought to develop domestic alternatives, promote import substitution, and diversify its economic and technological partnerships with other countries. While Russia maintains a formidable military, it faces challenges in keeping pace with Western technological advancements. The need for innovation and modernization is crucial to maintain a competitive edge in an evolving global security landscape. Corruption and inefficiency also continue to plague the Russian defense industry. Cases of embezzlement and mismanagement have led to concerns about the effectiveness of defense spending. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022, analysts have observed a litany of failures when it comes to the provision of Russia's armed forces, including fuel shortages, equipping troops with non-military grade radio systems, and a lack of winter clothing and rations. Across all these incidents are accusations of corruption. Soldiers have been accused of selling fuel in Belarus ahead of the invasion. The grants for military-grade radios have been embezzled, and winter clothing sold by senior officials. Corruption and chronic mismanagement go hand in hand, meaning that in many instances, Russian troops have been without the support or resources needed to achieve their military objectives. Shortages cannot be explained away by an accusation that Russia does not spend enough on its military. In 2022, Moscow spent $61.7 billion on its military, the fourth largest military budget in the world. But this impressive budget has been hollowed out by a pervasive culture of corruption, where kickbacks and outright theft are commonplace.
For good or for bad, there is a market economy in the country, and the current successor to KGB, but I will use KGB just as easier. It's not this solid body the way it existed even back then. In 1991, some of them, especially people in the intelligence, they already were involved in some businesses, and they already, when Kryuchkov, the chairman of the KGB, conducted this attempted coup, many didn't support him because they had other interests. In fact, the middle level of the KGB didn't support because they had business interests. So the same, much more true for the contemporary KGB, for the FSB, and for other agencies. These are basically a conglomerate of different businesses. All of them, or the majority of them, colonels and generals, they have their own, small businesses on the side, just not to be, sorry when I will get old, just a little bit, house there, mistress there, etc. So there is no this solid, even in the last years of the Soviet Union, there was much more precisely because all of them, they were dependable upon the state. They couldn't, they couldn't imagine themselves living outside the state, right? So they were gatekeepers. Yes, it's true too that the current guys, they survived through 1991, 1992. They feared illustration, it never happened, and then they made this amazing comeback, which was absolutely in the cards, predictable, and it was clear that it was going to happen. The point is, but still, when we have different business interests, we have plurality of interests. And the second very important thing is that there is no ideology. Soviet Union had ideology. For good or for bad, my father, who passed away in 1980, he was a communist. Half of his family perished in Gulag, but he was a communist. He was building military-industrial complex. So there is no ideology whatsoever.